It's time for another episode of Let's Talk Business, featuring interviews with South Carolina business executives, community leaders, and government dignitaries. Let's Talk Business is a truly one-of-a-kind business-to-business talk show. And now, here's your host, longtime South Carolina business publisher, Rick Jenkins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Business, episode number 2. I'm glad you found us. I'm glad you're joining us. I'm really looking forward to our second episode. Last week we had a great one, and this week is going to be no different. So whether you are joining us by listening on 94.5 The Answer in the Upstate, or maybe you're checking out one of our podcasts on the most popular platforms is where we are right now. We're on Google, we're on Apple, and we're on Spotify. Or maybe you're checking out the video version of this show on our YouTube channel. Regardless of how you're doing it, I am glad you're here. Like I say, I'm glad you found us. Every week, I talk to a featured guest and 3 or 4 other executives about a variety of topics that are of interest to the business community in the Palmetto State. And today we have 5 folks that are joining us, a featured guest and 4 others. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through them real quick. We'll take a short break after that, and then we'll be back and get started. But in no particular order, Travis Seward will be here. He joined us on our first episode, so he's back by popular demand. Travis is the Chief of Staff at EVG Media. EVG is a content solutions company, and they do work all over the globe, really, even though they are headquartered right here in Greenville. Bill Simmons is with us. Bill is the owner and CEO of Thrive Business Operations, and they specialize in providing fractional assistance to companies in the form of chief operating officers. So I look forward to that conversation. Joe Perkins, Executive Vice President of Operations at Carolina Handling. Carolina Handling specializes in supply chain consulting and warehouse optimization. You know, supply chain is one of those words, those phrases that we didn't use a lot until COVID hit, and now it has become all too popular in our lexicon. Also, Tom Trya is here. Tom is the Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at GSP International Airport. And get this, folks, GSP was recently named the best small airport in North America. True story. I can't wait to talk to Tom about that. And our featured guest today is Mark Farris. Mark Farris is the CEO at GADC, the Greenville Area Development Corporation. They were founded in 2001. They're a nonprofit economic development agency, and they provide support to businesses of all sizes in Greenville, in the Greenville market. You know, once upon a time, Greenville was a hidden gem. GADC's job is to promote the Greenville area really everywhere, not just in South Carolina, but in the country and throughout the world, really. It's a global effort. And like I say, once upon a time, Greenville was a hidden gem. Well, not anymore. So I'm guessing that we have Mark and his team's efforts to thank for that. If you want to thank them for us not being a gem, lots more folks here on our roads in our city, but that's a good thing. So we will talk to Mark and we'll talk to the other executives. But first, let's take a quick 30-second break, and here's a business you should know about. We'll be right back.
I bet you want a website that drums up business. You see, every business wants to have an effective online presence that helps their business grow.
At Drum Creative,
we guide you through our process that will drive results by clarifying your message with a beautiful design that's strategically optimized for search.
Visit our website at drumcreative.com
and let us help you drum up business by designing a website that speaks to your audience and delivers results.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Business. Appreciate you being here. Our next guest today is Tom Trya. Tom is the Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at GSP International Airport, and we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today. Tom, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
You are welcome. I am glad you're here. Let's just get right into it. You all received, I was going to say an award, but it's kind of a batch of awards here recently. Folks, get this. If you haven't heard this, this is really amazing stuff. GSP International Airport was named the best small airport in North America, but they won 4 other global awards for customer experience, cleanliness, friendly staff. Actually, Tom, you all won all the major awards for this industry in 1 year.
Yeah,
pretty cool stuff, right?
Yeah, we've got a lot of very hardworking folks out at this airport, and And this is kind of our mission and values. We know that we're in a tough neighborhood. We have Atlanta Airport, Charlotte Airport, lots of choices in this neighborhood. But we want to make sure that you have the best customer experience. And the airlines, the TSA, our team with the district, all pulled together, and we can't be more proud.
What makes GSP so customer friendly?
Well, it's how we start every day. I mean, even when we hire every employee, we go through an entire orientation of what does it mean for us to deliver service to the customer, and how do we set ourselves apart from the other airports out there. Every airport, airplanes take off, they land, they move through. It used to be an old adage that if you didn't remember the airport, everything went really well. Yeah. We went beyond that. We want you to remember the airport, and we want you to remember how you were welcomed, and the services and the types of restaurants and other things that you have that just set us apart from other airports our size.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I love GSP Airport. I think it's beautiful. I think it's well organized. And I always remember airports. The ones that I remember for a reason, for wanting to go through there, right? I mean, whether it's good restaurants or a good place to grab a beer or whatever, right? So anyway, congratulations on that. Let's jump right into the Terminal Roadway Improvement Project, or TRIP, T-R-I-P. Now, this is a 24-month, $18 million project designed to, let me make sure I get this right here, designed to significantly improve roadway congestion on the GSP Airport campus and allow us to continue to grow in the future. Tell us about this effort.
Yeah, so the airport, GSP, was opened in 1962. So we're almost 60 years, and we have not had really significant changes to the roadways in that time. We have grown. This region has grown significantly. We continue to think that in the decades coming ahead, we're going to grow. So it's now time to address the roadways around the airport. And if anyone's picked up or dropped off a passenger late at night, on Friday nights or Sunday nights, you know that it can get pretty backed up, pretty congested. So this completely restructures and reconstructs the roadways that are right in front of the terminal between the two garages. And it expands lanes, makes them wider, makes a longer curb front so more people can get to the curb easier. Allows a better movement of buses and Uber, Lyft. Bigger thing is it also lays the infrastructure out to where we can eventually build a third parking garage.
Are you going to have to remove anything?
We're going to have to remove some of the islands and make those roadways a little wider. There'll still be a separation there, but we're going to actually add a lane on either side of there, so it just spreads it out. And ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to put a couple more roundabouts in, and there won't be a single stoplight on airport property. There would all be roundabouts to move that traffic all the time. So we think it's going to be a big improvement, and it's now time to do that.
This is a 24-month project. How far along are you?
We're about 3 or 4 months into the project, okay. So we've got a while yet. Right now, if you're out at the airport, you probably won't notice a lot of changes. You'll see some bulldozers making some roads and things like that. Nothing in front of the terminal. We're really looking at probably towards right after the holiday season. You'll see the front curb, January, February, March, where there'll be some significant construction. So we'll bear with us. Right. You will like the results.
Right. We'll be patient. You got a new airline, Avelo Airlines. Tell us about that.
We do. It's a brand new airline. They've only been flying for about a year and a half. They are folks who used to work for other low-cost carriers like Allegiant and Frontier and some of the other airlines that you may have heard of. This is an airline that has been rapidly growing, and it's different than most. Most airlines are for people who live in the GSP area going out to destinations. This one wants to take GSP people to Orlando, to New Haven, Connecticut, to Wilmington, Delaware, but more importantly, they want to bring people from those places to GSP for the tourism, for meeting and greeting, for families. And so there's a lot of people up in the New Haven area, which is really Westchester County, New York, Long Island, up in Wilmington, which is really kind of Philadelphia, that want to get away from those cities and they want to come into the upstate. And this is what that airline's driven for. And so we're excited to be one of their first markets to explore.
And this is a low-cost airline. And tell me again where the stops are.
Yeah, so they're Wilmington, Delaware, which is just outside of Philadelphia. New Haven, Connecticut, where Yale University is. There's a lot of Westchester County, a lot of New Yorkers in that area. And Orlando, Florida, we all know where that is.
We know where that is. All right, I'm going to get you out of here on this. Let's talk about the automated shuttle network of electric vehicles. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, so we just talked about the TRIP project of how we want to make sure our roadways are modern. We're going beyond that. We always look at 20, 30, 40 years out. And one of the projects that we are actually studying right now is the feasibility of putting automated electric shuttles. So shuttle buses that hold 16, 18 passengers that have no driver, all on a GPS course, dedicated roadways, taking people from our parking lots to the terminal, employees, maybe even somewhere down the road moving freight from airplanes to warehouses. We will be probably the first or one of the first airports in the United States to have this project. We think it's where we go in the future. We'll just have to make sure that all the dollars and cents line up.
Right. And so if this occurs, when might we see it?
We would see this, I think, fairly quickly. We'd see this in the next few years.
Okay. That's good stuff. Electric vehicles in South Carolina is a big thing right now, of course, with our commitment to auto manufacturing and BMW and other places throughout the state. Tom, great stuff. I appreciate you being here.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you.
Folks, that is Tom Trya. He is the Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at GSP International Airport. We are going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. Here's another company you should know. Be right back.
Hi, my name is Ed Hubbard with Adroit Systems Company. My wife Angie and I moved to this community 20 years ago. It has been great to be part of the growth of the South Carolina upstate. Our company specializes in access control systems, fire alarm systems, burglar alarm systems, and intercom systems. Let us know if we can be of service to your business. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Welcome back to Let's Talk Business. This is a business talk show, as I told you up at the start, like no other, unique to South Carolina. And if you are listening on 94.5 The Answer, welcome. Maybe you're checking out a podcast, or maybe you're just watching our videos on YouTube. Regardless, thank you for being here. Our first guest, our next guest actually, is Bill Simmons. Bill Simmons is the owner and CEO of Thrive Business Operations. They specialize in providing fractional assistance to companies in the form of chief operating officers. Bill, welcome.
Well, thank you for having us. We're excited about this new venture.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about it too. And I'm excited to talk to you about this because fractional executives, it's been a thing for quite some time. But it seems that it has picked up speed over the course of the last number of years. I don't know, you can tell me how long that is, but I'm assuming that part of that is a result of COVID and people having different work environments and maybe working remotely. How about it?
Yeah, I agree. I think in the marketplace, the fractional space was really kind of led over the past couple of decades by fractional CFOs, chief financial officers.
Yes.
A lot of CPAs and accounting firms, bookkeeping firms brought that to the marketplace. And now over the last few years, to be able to see other people taking their experience and their competency out to the market and bring that to companies at an affordable rate.
That's a good way to look at it. So let's talk about your team for a minute. How many people are we talking here?
Yeah, on our team right now, we have 11 that are spread around the country that take on various roles of what we call fractional COOs, and then business function experts. We do have some key people on our team that take certain areas of a business like sales and HR, as you mentioned, right, and data, where we can be the expert on your team when that is needed.
Right. So, yeah, those other fractional executives that I alluded to could potentially, depending on the organizational structure, fold up under a COO umbrella.
Yeah.
So the guys that you have, not gender specific, but the guys that you have to be able to do a whole lot of different things.
Yeah, so we operate on what we call the 9 functions of a business, and it's 9 squares. And at the center of that square, we believe operations belongs. Right. And it touches all the other areas of the business. So a quality chief operating officer in the fractional state that we bring into a company is going to make sure that the strategic efforts of all of those areas of the company are aligning with the overarching direction of the company.
Right. Got it. So fractional executives, I just think that, well, let's talk about why they're so much more popular today. some companies, and I suppose you're probably working primarily with smaller companies, maybe small to medium size. Is
yeah,
that
but
fair?
our ideal client is a privately held, rapidly growing company that's going to be somewhere between 5 and 50 million.
Okay.
That we serve above and we serve below, but
Okay.
that's kind of our niche.
Right. And why is a CEO looking for a fractional CEO, especially if it's a company that brings in 25 or 30 million? It seems like that you might want a full-time guy there.
Yeah, it's really about quality of execution, and sometimes it's, our mission statement is to serve people, solve problems. A lot of times we will talk to CEOs who they've had a bad experience with a COO, and that could be for multiple reasons on both sides of the coin. But ultimately, we become a lower risk opportunity because you're not making the large investment and then have personality clashes. Our goal is to, creatives and visionaries, they just want things executed.
Yeah.
Right. And finding a way to build that relationship is important.
So I'm assuming that someone can come to you and say, hey, look, I'm looking for somebody to help me 1 day a week or 2 days a week. What does the fractional part of this service really look like?
Yeah, our model doesn't do it that way. Our model does it that we are going to focus on what we call quarterly sprints. We want to help run your company 90 days at a time. And through our strategic planning process, we're going to identify what the priorities and objectives of the next 90 days are. And that becomes the scope of work. So rather the conversation being, how many days and hours are you going to work for us? The conversation is around, what are the results we're going to get for you in the next 90 days? And it's fractional. We can't do everything, but we can do anything. We got to decide what the anything is going to be. And so our strategic planning process allows us to work with the business owner to agree on what that scope's going to be.
So is this person that you're providing them, are they full-time with them? I know we're using the word fractional, but it sounds like it could be somewhat a full-time effort for some period of time?
Yeah, well, it depends on the need, So we have, kind of our outline and our template, but we don't want to be cookie cutter for each client. We want to be able to customize for their specific needs. And so, again, we're not having conversations around full-time, part-time. We're having conversations around accomplishments and results. But it is a fraction of the time, it is a fraction of the cost. And probably more importantly than time is the money part of it, where we want to work with you and be somewhere between 50 and 60% of what a full-time COO would be.
Right. And, I suppose one of the advantages of going to a fractional executive would be that you don't have the expense of employing that person.
Absolutely.
From an insurance perspective or a 401k benefit kind of thing.
Yeah, we reduce a lot of risk and we reduce a lot of costs for you.
Right. I'm sure you do. Okay, before we go, why don't you give me one success story?
Oh wow, there's so many to choose from. Sure one of the stories we love to tell is working with a business owner who was a second-generation business owner and had worked with the company for well over 20 years, but felt he had everything in his head. And every time the company was going through a growth spurt, it just demanded more people rushing to them and asking the same questions over and over and over again. Yes. And he said, Bill, I've never been able to extract from my mind all the things that are there so that I can replicate it with our team. And I said, well, you're talking to the right person, because our company, we're experts at extracting from you what nobody else is able to do. And one of the things we were really able to do was pull from him over a series of conversations what were 8 stages of how they begin to start their services and deliver their services, and be able to not only identify that, but work through the steps it takes all the way down to standard operating procedures. So now he has a clear training track of what's in his brain of how his company runs. Not only does that make the team more efficient, but it makes the company more valuable. Because now when you go to sell the company, you're selling a process, not just your book of business.
Good stuff, Bill.
Thank you.
Guys, that is Bill Simmons, CEO at Thrive Business Operations, and I appreciate him being here, and I appreciate you being here. But let's take a quick break. We'll only be gone for a few seconds. We'll be right back.
PTG actually stands for Palmetto Technology Group. We're what's called a managed service provider. We exist to align technology to business value.
We help businesses work better by trying to be proactive. If they call us with a problem, we try to find out, okay, is that the only problem? Or is there a root cause? There may be something else going on that's causing this.
It takes a very special kind of person, I think, to bring the IT world into the business world and make sure those two are working well together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Business. I'm glad you're joining us. And as I say after every commercial break, if you're watching us or listening to us on 94.5 The Answer, or maybe you're watching one of our podcasts on Google, Apple, or Spotify, or you're catching the video on YouTube, I'm glad you're here and I'm glad you found us. Thanks for coming back. And up next, I got Joe Perkins here with us. Joe is the Executive Vice President of Operations for Carolina Handling. Joe, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. I haven't had a chance to meet you, and even though I, of course, have researched a little bit about Carolina Handling, I wasn't overly familiar with you guys. You do a couple of things that I really want to talk about is warehouse optimization and supply chain types of issues, and we'll get into that in a second. But as we all know, supply chain is one of those things that everyone might not have been familiar with before March of 2020, but things happened at that point that made it a general part of our lexicon, and so we'll get into that. But first, tell me about Carolina Handling. What do y'all do?
Yeah, so material handling supplier right here in the Southeast, so cover North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Central Time Zone of Florida. We're the Raymond OEM, so electric forklift company. Over the last few years, we've really expanded what we want our customers to view us as, so getting away from just the forklift and service to really expanding into intralogistics solutions, which really impacts the supply chain.
Yeah. So you started as a forklift company?
We absolutely did.
And when did you all begin to kind of transition into something a little more umbrella-like?
Yeah. So I've been here for 11 years now, and during my time with the company, I've watched that transition to continue to happen. I think some of it was in the works before, but the big thing was customers needed all of the resources that we currently provide. And so why not become that one-stop shop that a customer can call you, and whether it's automation or rentals or service or what have you, we would be able to help them out.
Let's talk about supply chain. Let's get into a little bit more depth there. Ton of vulnerabilities raised their heads during COVID times.
Really did.
Right? I mean, it kind of got ugly there for a couple years. I think we continue to experience some things, but tell us about those vulnerabilities and what happened.
Yep. So, the cool thing about Carolina Handling and our customer base is that we service so many different verticals. From, here in the upstate, we had a tissue supplier that we were working with, and we know during COVID, I mean, that was booming. But there were really a couple things that I think COVID really exposed. First, it was how quickly the customer and our consumers could adapt and change their buying habits. And so we saw a lot of our customers where they were challenged with moving pallets to now moving cases or eaches because the buying habit of the consumer had changed. And while they may have been moving the same amount of volume, the amount of touches that it took to get it to that end user changed drastically. And so therefore, the throughput in those facilities, I mean, it was 2 or 3x what it had been. And so a real challenge. Another thing that I think it really exposed was a lot of our customers had single source supply chain on a lot of parts and components and things that were coming from overseas and offshore. And, those customers quickly realized that, hey, I have to redesign, re-engineer some of the products that I may be supplying because I can't get it. A lot of the world, while the U.S. may have been opening up, a lot of the world was still shut down in many of the regions that were supplying that. And then, the other thing was the labor shortage. We saw an exodus of a lot of the baby boomers out of the workforce. And a lot of our customers depend on labor to move product. And when those folks started to leave the workforce, it really left a void.
Sure did. What types of clients are we talking about for you guys?
Oh gosh, it's manufacturing through distribution, it's pharmaceutical to food. You think we're touching the Amazons, the Walmarts, we're touching Pfizer, and we're all over the place.
Let's talk about automation, manufacturing automation. I think that there is a more of an acceptance for customers these days to embrace automation in manufacturing. How are you all playing a part in that?
Yeah, so the things I mentioned earlier, right? All of our customers are facing that labor shortage. They're needing to move products faster. They're needing to optimize their facility. And, going back to the transition of our company, I mentioned we didn't want to be just a forklift company. And so the first thing that we did, and I mean, this has really happened over the last 5 to 7 years, we created an intralogistics group that we have. And when that group started, we were 4 or 5 people selling stick rack and things like that to our customers. But today that group's over 35 people. And we've got engineers, we've got consultants, we've got a ton of expertise that we've added. I think there's like over 150 years of expertise in that engineering group. And so our customers are able to come to us for something that they typically would have to pay for. And we're able to help them understand what solutions are out there. Another piece that is key to Toyota, Raymond, and Carolina Handling is, you've probably heard Toyota Production Systems. We call it Raymond Lean Management, but it's really a focus on continuous improvement. And so you talked about warehouse optimization earlier, and we really believe strongly in optimizing processes before you go and start to put automation in. Because if you automate a bad process, it's automated within it. And so we really want to make sure that optimization happens first.
Technology is changing like crazy, right? I mean, it never stops. In the manufacturing world, it seems like just the other day we were Industry 3.0, and now we're zooming up to 5.0. It seems like, right?
Yep.
What does technology look like in the next decade?
Oh gosh, I wish I had that crystal ball, man.
Right.
We'd make a lot of money. But I think I would answer it this way. I think everything points to overcoming the challenges that we talked about earlier and the adoption following those challenges. So the talent shortage, anything that can play in that space, so AGVs, automated robots, a lot of goods to person technology where rather than someone having to travel to warehouse, the product is brought to them. Anything that, helps with the supply chain disruption and minimizing that. I think you're going to see a lot of technology that creates transparency, as well as the Internet of Things, right? So how do we tie a machine and what that machine's doing relative to order size and magnitude and really optimizing how they play a role within the supply chain up and downstream.
Great info, Joe.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
Really good stuff. Folks, that is Joe Perkins. He is the Executive Vice President of Operations for Carolina Handling. I appreciate him being here. And we're going to take a quick break. We'll only be on about 30 seconds, but we'll be right back. Here's a company you should know.
Thrive Business Operations offers fractional COO services, and we work with business experts to provide clients and companies a suite and team of expertise to support their business operations.
COO, Chief Operations Officer, normally comes alongside the visionary or creator, founder of the business who has a lot of vision, a lot of creativity, and help actually execute that vision. A big frustration with business owners is their vision getting actually executed. A Chief Operations Officer is meant to do that. We do it at a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost to bring savings to the company and bring excellence and processes to move that execution faster.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Business. Glad to have you back. Regardless if you are listening on 94.5 The Answer or you're checking out one of our podcasts, maybe on Apple, maybe on Google, maybe on Spotify, or you are watching the video on our YouTube channel, regardless of how you found us, I'm glad you're here. Our next guest is our featured guest for the day, and it's Mark Farris. Mark Farris is the CEO at GADC, the Greenville Area Development Corporation. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Rick.
It's good to have you here. I know you're busy.
Yeah, not too busy to come here, though.
Well, I appreciate that. As a matter of fact, we were talking before we came on air, and you had a busy night last night, right? You had some Swiss folks in town. Tell us about that.
As happens pretty often, Greenville is an international community.
That's right.
And last night we had a reception for the Swiss General Consul, Consul General, and the Chamber of Commerce of Switzerland. And we had, about 40, 50 people in Greenville talking about the opportunities for inward investment from Switzerland and, the connections that we could make to try to generate more international business here.
How did that come about? It really interests me because, you got more than Switzerland that pops in on Greenville from time to time. How does that thing occur?
So there's in Greenville, a lot of people don't know this, but for the two Carolinas, North and South, there's a European American Chamber of Commerce. It was formed a couple of years ago, in fact, and they take opportunities like this to have companies, especially obviously from Western Europe, to come to Greenville and to generate that kind of connection that's made with U.S. companies and with economic development organizations.
Now, the European Chamber, it is located in Greenville?
It is.
But does it works for South Carolina?
And North Carolina.
Okay, the same one is headquartered right here.
Right. We are the Carolinas chapter of the European American Chamber of Commerce, and they really did the event.
So I would guess since they're in your backyard, you get the benefit of the doubt when somebody's wanting to come and visit one of these two states?
Yes, certainly. And Greenville, Rick, is a very international city. We were talking earlier about the census information that came down a couple of months ago. It showed that Greenville County had 13,000 new people moved to Greenville in 2022, and we found that 1 in 5 of those were of international origin.
How about that? How's that compare?
We're a lot higher than most places in the Southeast. We're higher than Charleston, higher than Richland and Columbia. So we have probably the greatest concentration of both international businesses and international folks in the state of South Carolina.
When I moved to Greenville, and I consider myself a South Carolinian now because it was 20 years ago, even though I know that a lot of folks listening and watching are going, no, Rick, you're not, because you have to be born here, right? Okay, so I got it. You were born here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Went to Clemson. Right. So you're a South Carolina boy. But regardless, I do feel like a South Carolinian. Came here a long time ago, 20 years. But when I got here, Greenville was a hidden gem. It's no longer a hidden gem. And when I introduced you on the intro to this show, I kind of made a little bit of a joke that if you don't like the fact that our roads are so busy these days, you can thank Mark and his team for that, right? But we are not, and I'm joking, we are not a hidden gem anymore. And talk about that. I mean, what a transformation that this city has made in 2 decades.
Sure. And of course, it's been longer than 2 decades.
Of course.
A lot of people consider Greenville a 30-year overnight success. And there's a lot of truth to that because it was, there were groups of people 50 years ago even that were planning to make Greenville a special city. I did a little bit of research about international business and found that Greenville used to host the largest textile industry trade show in the world.
I did know that.
And started in 1917.
Yes, right.
And in fact, in 1950s, I think we had 40,000 people that would come and attend this textile trade show in Greenville. And then the city leaders and community leaders actually across the upstate began the process of attracting the companies that made the textile machinery equipment. We all have seen textile operations where they're weaving cloth or dyeing and finishing, or I worked in a textile mill, as did my family for generations. But the communities of the upstate decided to pursue the equipment manufacturers. And who were they? They were Swiss, Italian, German. And so in the 50s, they began the process of attracting those companies here. So by the time BMW rolls around in 1992, this community is very comfortable with that growth, very comfortable with the international exposure, and vice versa. The companies there were comfortable with the upstate of South Carolina. So it was an easy thing to attract those companies and even more.
So Greenville Convention Center was built to house those huge expo fairs for the textile industry, right? They got 10 football fields of space. That's why that sucker was built a long time ago.
Absolutely. That's exactly why.
All right. So GADC, nonprofit. You were founded, 2001. Greenville County Commission founded it. So we're talking a little over 2 decades ago, shortly before I moved to town. Why was it founded to begin with? Does the mission now match the mission then?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly, the county council decided that our best efforts to recruit, especially manufacturing, distribution, office projects, need to be an organization that was specialized in those 3 areas. And so they created GADC funded it. Of course, we are technically a 501c3. We're not a county department, although the majority of our funding comes from the county. Since our inception in 2001, the organization's helped recruit almost $7 billion worth of industry investment to Greenville and about 36,000 jobs as a result of those company investments. And last year, for example, we had $470 million and 2,200 new jobs in Greenville. So there's been a long history of success, but it was primarily an attempt to focus the recruitment efforts on that manufacturing distribution office.
How does your organization, how is it structured? How many staff do you have? And then also, who do you, Mark Farris, report to?
Yeah, I have 7 members of staff. We're adding a new investor relations individual coming up soon, but I report to a board. I have a board of directors, 16 members that are appointed entirely by the county council. In fact, 3 members of council serve on my board as well, county council. So there's a direct connection there. Our area of responsibility is Greenville County, but that includes municipalities, and we work as partners with the different municipalities. As certainly when we have a company interested in those cities, we kind of turn that over a lot of times to those folks, or we carry it through to fruition.
Mention partners. Let's talk about partners. Upstate Alliance. They're a partner, right?
Absolutely. Upstate Alliance is tasked with generating opportunities for us in the upstate, the 10-county region stretching from Cherokee to Oconee. And so they go out and find the companies, and then our individual economic development organizations in the 10 counties are responsible for landing those companies. And a lot of time that's in competition with Georgia and North Carolina, but also other communities in South Carolina. I know my career, I spent 27 years in York County.
That's right.
And lost a lot of projects to Greenville,
yeah.
Especially in the manufacturing arena. And I figured I would join them instead of trying to beat them.
Right, can't beat them, join them. So, so you're saying that what John Lummis, your colleague over at Upstate Alliance, and his team does is they tee it up, they get you the lead, they turn it to you and say, "We'll close it."
Right.
Right. That's the way that relationship basically works.
Yep.
And then the relationship between you and the folks like York County or Anderson County or Spartanburg County, I would guess that is a little more competitive in nature.
It is. Certainly, we're charged with bringing companies to Greenville County. Now, while we're certainly excited when we have large operations that locate, or any company really that locates in the 10-county area, Anderson and Spartanburg are certainly competitors when it comes to the location. A lot of times, when a company decides on an area, there's multiple locations that they could potentially go to, and that includes the states of North Carolina and Georgia, and we compete obviously with those communities as well. But when they say, "Yeah, I want to be in the upstate of South Carolina," then technically we're competitors. But it's awfully nice to have large announcements in some of these other adjoining counties, because we share a workforce, right? So we have a lot of folks commute into Greenville County, but a lot go to those locations in Anderson or Spartanburg to work. So we're kind of all in it together, but at the end of the day, we are competitors.
And I wouldn't have expected any answer other than that. You know, there's a ton of reasons to live in Greenville, South Carolina. We know that, right? I mean, the quality of life is amazing. The schools are good. You can buy a house at a pretty good rate here. Beautiful, gorgeous downtown, all kinds of outside activities. We're at the foot of the mountains, right? Not telling you anything this guy doesn't know, because you say it all the time. We're 3 hours from the beach. We're 2 hours from Charlotte. We're 2 hours from Atlanta. We got 2 interstates running through. We're a foodie paradise. Yeah. All kinds of reasons to live here. What are the reasons to work here, to locate here, to expand here?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of statistics that I think take people by surprise. If you look at Greenville County, over 640 manufacturing companies are in Greenville County. So we're a base of manufacturing. If you think about, the reason that Greenville developed, it was because of our fast-moving rivers, right? You had the Reedy, the Inneree, the Saluda, and you had textile operations that needed the water-powered looms. And so that set the groundwork for a lot of the manufacturing, especially as industrialization occurred. Now, obviously, we've carried that through automotive, aviation, advanced materials, life science has been a great area for us. But But the benefits of the upstate and of Greenville in particular is the labor. You know, we win or lose projects now based on our ability to convince a prospective company that they're going to be able to find the labor that they need. We have 28 universities that are in the upstate, and those connections with, for example, Clemson. We have the highest number of registered professional engineers per capita in the nation in the upstate. We just located an engineering company, Garver. They're bringing an operation here that'll employ 95 folks. Most of them will be engineers. They do a lot of mechanical and electrical engineering type work. And the reason they found us attractive was because they knew they could find their labor here, as opposed to some of our competing areas. So,
take me behind the curtain here for a second. So let's say that, you know, a representative from Company X that is located wherever, right, comes to town, and you are trying to close that deal that Mr. Lummis and his team set up for you, let's just say, right? And so these folks come to town. What does it look like when you're meeting them? I'm just wondering, you mentioned you might take somebody for a tour at CMI or maybe CUI car or BMW, or do you sit down with Dr. Keith Miller over at Greenville Tech? Do these kinds of conversations occur?
Absolutely, all of those. When I first got into business 38 years ago, companies would come in and they would spend a day and a half.
Yeah.
You know, we would even take companies to play golf.
Yeah, right.
You know, that's how, and they were looking at, you know, 30 different communities and, you know, 5 sites in each community.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the benefit of the internet. Okay, so there was a lot more due diligence, a lot more qualification that had to occur in that process. That's all changed now. Companies come to us, we have 2 hours. They know what we have. They know what we don't have. So a lot of times companies won't even look at us if we don't have the requirements that they need. So it's a much more streamlined situation. So a lot of times we only have a couple of hours to differentiate ourselves, and we focus on the things that are important to them. Certainly that labor force. The cost of operations, you know, the Southeast and Greenville County is one of the lowest cost of operations areas in the world. We focus on the out of doors, the assets that we have, the natural environment that we have. And Greenville has a pretty special sense of place. You know, if you think about us in relation or comparison to a lot of communities in the Southeast and, you know, even in South Carolina, Greenville has a lot of assets. They're downtown. The fact that we do have so many existing manufacturing operations, all that combines to create an environment that companies want to be here. You know, I've had several companies just since I've been here that'll call me and say, I want to be in Greenville. And normally that doesn't happen. Normally they call and say, well, I'm looking in North Carolina, Georgia, and what can you do for me? I need incentives. I need free land. And that doesn't happen a lot now. A lot of times, you know, companies, obviously, like I mentioned, their first search is on the internet, but Greenville has such a special sense of place that it draws companies on its own.
You talked about incentives. What leeway do you have in GADC to offer the types of incentives that some of these companies are looking for?
Right. That is one of the things I think that a lot of people don't understand. We're the authorized agent of Greenville County to offer incentives, and they can be substantial. You know, in conjunction with what the state of South Carolina offers, Greenville County has the ability to lower property taxes by as much as 43% for a company and lock that in for a 30-year period. So it's, you know, that's called fee in lieu of tax. We can issue infrastructure credits to help develop infrastructure associated with that company's investment. So from a property tax perspective, that's where our largest incentives exist. From the state's perspective, the state derives its revenue from sales tax, corporate income, personal income. And so people, right? People are important. And so the state gives most of its incentives associated with the number of people and the pay scale associated with those jobs. So in combination with the county's incentives from property tax, real and personal property tax, South Carolina puts together a pretty good package for most companies.
Sounds like it. You talked about sometimes companies, well, all the time, companies are going to do due diligence and decide if they want to move to Greenville or not. But are there times when you all do your due diligence to determine if a company is the right fit to move here to begin with?
Yeah, we do, certainly. Every company is not a good fit for Greenville. You know, if a company comes in, I think the Southeast in general has had a reputation for cheap land, cheap labor. We don't have that. So if a company comes in and says, yeah, we're going to pay $12 an hour, we discourage them. We say, look, you know, I'm sure you're a fine company,
right?
But if that's your pay scale, you're not going to find people here. You're better to move on. If there's a company that has some environmental consideration, you know, if they have effluent or discharge, if they have some kind of hazardous process or a process that creates a lot of noise or generates a lot of pollution, then, you know, we try to discourage them and say you might be better served in another community because, frankly, I'm not sure we'd be able to support you here.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't happen often.
Well, of course. But you have to find a polite way to say thanks, but no thanks. Talk about, let's end with this. And you got a new long-range strategic plan for economic development. First of all, when was that put together?
That was just last year. As
just last year.
Finalized. Well, it was a 3-year process, but we actually just rolled it out last year.
Right. And how far does that plan look into the future?
At least 5 years.
It's 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that on some kind of rotating basis that you update it every so often, 5 years forward?
Well, the business is pretty dynamic. And so, you know, what we
pursued. It's a living document?
It is. What we pursued even 10 years ago certainly is not the same as we're now pursuing.
If we take a peek into that, what will we see?
Well, if you think about, we've broken the plan down in 3 areas: business development, tools and sites, and organizational outreach. So, you know, Greenville County has developed so rapidly that we do not have an adequate inventory of industrial property. So we had our first new business park in 20 years announced in 2021. The Sudler Group comes to Greenville, builds Fox Hill Business Park. They're now almost completing construction on their 3rd building, which has already been leased.
Yeah.
So it's been very active. But the great part is we've had a lot of interest in Greenville from developers that are out of market. They've come in, they've bought property, they've established a presence in Greenville, and that's wonderful. But as we rapidly develop, and certainly that includes residentially and commercially as well, we don't have a set of property that we need to count on for the future. So we're out trying to work with developers, work with property owners, work with other partners to identify parcels that we could grow as industrial sites. If you think about organizational outreach, we as an organization need to adjust our metrics. You know, obviously jobs and investment at the end of the year are the 2 things that we measure the greatest, but are we raising per capita incomes, for example, in Greenville County? South Carolina lags in that category, so we want to focus on those companies that will help accomplish that. So there's those 3 areas that we're going to be working on to try to do incremental growth, certainly, and adjust Greenville Economic Development's vision for the future based on the changes that are occurring in the economy.
Great stuff, Mark. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Rick. It's my pleasure.
Enjoyed it. Great info. And if we're going to judge your success and the success of your team by driving around and walking around and looking at this beautiful city that we all live in, you're doing a bang-up job. Folks, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back with our next guest. Don't go anywhere.
I bet you want a website that drums up business. You see, every business wants to have an effective online presence that helps their business grow.
At Drum Creative,
we guide you through our process that will drive results by clarifying your message with a beautiful design that's strategically optimized for search.
Visit our website at drumcreative.com
and let us help you drum up business by designing a website that speaks to your audience and delivers results.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Business. And as always, I'm glad you're here. And whether you are watching on YouTube, one of our video channels, or maybe you're checking out a podcast, or maybe you're listening to us on the radio, 94.5 The Answer. Thanks for tuning in. Our next guest today is Travis Seward. Travis joined us last week on an episode, and we liked him so much we decided we were going to get him back in here. Travis is the Chief of Staff for EVG Media. Travis, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It is good to have you back. So you guys, and I just want to run through this quickly again, because for those of our viewers and or listeners who might not have seen last week's episode, I just want to touch base on this again. EVG Media, you all are a content solutions company, digital solutions company. You do it globally, but you are headquartered right here in Greenville, right? Give me that real quick elevator speech.
So we're in downtown Greenville.
Yep.
We were founded in 1999. We have experience in owned websites, as well as creating content for a variety of clients, from hospitality to financial to college or assisted living facilities. Our team stationed in the United States and globally, we have an office in the UK. We have about 700 people who work and create content in local language around the world for all those clients.
That is substantial. You know, I know that about you, and every time I hear it, I kind of just shake my head in amazement to think that you've got hundreds and hundreds of people providing content for a variety of companies globally. Impressive stuff. Let's talk about content. Yep. Content comes in many forms. As a matter of fact, what folks are listening to or watching right now is content. Tell us about the types of content we're discussing here.
So with EVG, we do everything from script development for video to social media posts, blog content, long-form journalism, and almost everything in between. We work with our partners to figure out what the story is they need to tell, and we find the right device to do that for them.
You know, I think that content, sponsored content, is a form of marketing that seems to be becoming extremely more popular as some of the traditional advertising and marketing methods from the past begin to fade. Yes?
Yes. So if you're marketing your brand, it starts with relationships. We have personal relationships within our own communities. We have personal relationships with people online. And so it is a matter of taking those relationships and the organic conversation that happens naturally, where you create a piece of content, you tell your story, and people find it online. But with sponsored content, it's really an advertorial. It is a way to get your story told in the tone and voice of a particular publication. And it's typically paid for and clearly identified with the byline or with some sort of sponsored monitor.
Right. Yeah, I've been in the media business my whole life, and I'm well aware of the fact that, you know, we always have to make sure that that sponsored content is flagged in a way that folks know that. But, you know, and I want to dive into this a little bit more. So sponsored content can be many different things. One, it can be setting someone up as a thought leader, right? It could be, here are my services, here are our services, and this is what we provide, and this is what we do. But it can also be, look at what we did, look at what we accomplished, look at this award we won. And sometimes people aren't comfortable doing that, but you should do that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because when other brands recognize that you are special, whether you have, you know, a unique point of view, or your product is an award-winning product, or you offer a service that's above and beyond, it's totally worth you spending the money to license that, to help broadcast that, to spread the audience. Because what you're doing is you're saying, I know I'm great. These people know we're great. Right. So everybody else should also know that these people think that we are great.
Right. People aren't always comfortable doing that, though.
No, and you know, we need.
But that's why you all can write it for them, and they don't have to write it about themselves.
Right.
Yes.
So we help them find where to publish it, how to write it. We interview them. We do it in their voice. It's almost like ghostwriting at that point. And we can help you figure out all of those little nuances of how to make a really good piece of content for the market that you're in.
If you've got 700 writers, right, that you contract with in whatever way that is, I would assume not only do you have folks that write in different languages, as you said, but that you have people who write about themes. They specialized in different types of content.
Absolutely.
Right?
So not only are writers local all over the globe, but we have a whole database of people who work with us regularly who are retired lawyers or active lawyers who just want to have the fun of being able to write something besides a brief in their day-to-day business. We have same thing with banking and professionals, and sometimes some of our clients require a certified expertise, and we go out and we build that data, resource as well.
Yeah. So if you don't have someone on staff that is knowledgeable about something, you just find them.
Yep. And with 700 contributors, they all have other friends.
Of course they do.
So it's really easy for us to leverage our network.
That's a good database to draw from. Travis, good stuff as always. I appreciate you.
Awesome. It's great to be here.
Good. Travis Seward, folks. He is the Chief of Staff at EVG Media, doing business globally, but located here in good old Greenville. Folks, that concludes another episode of Let's Talk Business. That's episode number 2 in the books, and we are so glad that you joined us. Stick around, and if you're watching on YouTube, and check out last week's episode if you wish. But episode number 3 coming up next week, our featured guest speaker will be South Carolina State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. I hope you join us. Thanks.